Welcome to the Soul Seeker podcast. I'm your host, Sam Kabert. I started this pod back in 2019 when I was taking my first steps on the path of remembering. And at the time, the tagline for the show was a journey of self-discovery. A year later, it became a journey of remembering. Yet, what I know now is back then, I was still seeking. And what I've come to know now is that it's the journey of seeking that brings us the silent, slow stillness of acceptance. And therein lies our own innate wisdom. It's my mission now to eradicate the glorification of hustle culture, as it was my drive in entrepreneurship that led to a greater whole, and that's because I was outsourcing my sovereignty rather than looking within. So let this be your invitation to take a deep breath in and remember that at any time we can shift our thoughts and our feelings to create the outer world in which we wish to live. Soul Seekers, it's time to grow. Let's go. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seeker podcast. I am excited, humbled, and grateful for my guest today because this man has been a huge part of my journey, and you'll hear about that in this episode. But before we get started, I'd like to do what we always do with this podcast. We'll start with just 3 breaths. For all of you out there in listening land, be mindful of closing your eyes if you're driving or on a jog or anything like that. But you can always breathe with us. Just 3 simple, deep breaths. So Blake, for you, for me, and for those of you that can, I invite you to close down your eyes, take a seat, and just sitting straight up, feeling your feet on the floor, pausing at your next natural exhale, and slowly through the nose, inhaling up. The top of the breath, sipping in a bit more. And through the mouth, exhale. That's it. Another like that. Deep inhale through the nose. The belly and the back body expands, bringing that breath all the way up. Top of the breath, sipping in a bit more. This time just holding the breath here for a moment. And exhale, let it go, let it go. And one more deep breath all the way up. Slow is good. Bring that breath all the way up. Top of the breath, sipping in a bit more air. Hold the breath here, just gently rolling the eyes upward. And sighing it out. Letting the breath return to its natural state and rhythm. As you're ready, just flickering the eyes back open. And here we are, episode 309, sitting here with Blake Mycoskie, founder of TOMS Shoes, and now the Enough Project. So excited. Blake, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Sam.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. For those of you listening, Blake, I showed this video to you before we hit record, how in my speeches for the past couple of years that I've been telling your story for a few years, but it just feels right to hear the story from yourself. So can you take us back to 2006 when you started TOMS Shoes and the inspiration behind it? And slow is good. We don't need to go fast here, and we'll just work our way through how you built TOMS to what happened next and where you are now. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. 2006, I was 29 years old. I had started about 5 companies before TOMS. No huge successes, just some little businesses here or there. Some worked, some didn't. But I really started early at about age 19 in college when I had my first business, which was a laundry business. And in 2006, I had enjoyed being an entrepreneur for 10 years, but also I was a little burnt out. And I went to Argentina on a vacation to just kind of clear my head. I was going to be down there for a month. And when I was down there, I was driving from the place I was staying into the city a lot. And I kept going through these small little towns and seeing lots of kids in the street not having shoes. And at the same time, a lot of the guys and people that I met down there were wearing this shoe called the Alpargata, this canvas kind of slip-on shoe. And one day I was sitting on the farm where I was staying, and I just had this like very simple idea. I mean, I think now it feels like almost like it was like downloaded to me from, some other, intelligence, because it had such an impact on the world. But really it was simple when I had it. It was, hey, I wonder if I could sell these shoes that all my kind of friends down here and the farmers and the polo players and the girlfriends are wearing, that are very inexpensive to make. And every time I sell a pair, sell them for enough that I could also buy another pair to give to these kids that I see in the street. They don't have shoes because, they needed the shoes for health and for school and for all these things. And so I literally had my buddy Alejo, who became my very best friend in the world. He's tattooed on my arm here. You can see him. That's Alejo. I said, hey, I was 29. He was like 24. And I said, hey, I had this idea, and would you help me, because I didn't speak Spanish very well, go and find a manufacturer. And, for us, the manufacturer was the guy in his garage who had a little, could make a couple, 50 pairs a day or something. And so we started really small, very simple idea. I sold a lot of them out of my apartment in Venice, California. And it really took off. I think it was in 2006. There was a big financial crisis that year. Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. There was a lot of distrust of corporate, intentions and business and greed, I think. And so we came out with this idea that we're going to be a company that from day one, even before we ever make a profit, we're going to give away something every time we sell it. And what a lot of people don't realize, it was actually kind of like the hipster community in Brooklyn that really put TOMS on the map. And it was mainly guys, actually. It's interesting because the shoe became much more popular with women over time. But it was actually these guys in hipster land, Brooklyn, that were like, kind of like, fuck big business. Like, this is cool. This is the company that's doing it differently. We're gonna wear these crazy looking shoes. They're like karate slippers, is what people called them at the time. And then the fashion industry paid attention, and then that happened, and then, kind of the rest is history. But I guess the top line numbers that are kind of interesting is, in 8 years, we went from 0 to 650 million in sales. I had no investors. The whole company was started with $3,000. And we were basically the fastest growing shoe company in the world for a couple of years. And most importantly, we gave 100 million children shoes. So quite the ride.
Absolutely. And I was telling you before, I was inspired by the story in 2011. I think is really, I might have been, it's so long ago at this point, it's over 15 years ago. And you probably feel this way as well. Like you've lived several lives and some things are hard to track down, switching timelines and things like that. Yeah. Right. But anyways, I know I read your book, 2011, Start Something That Matters. That's around the time it was published. I was just starting my business. I was 22, 23 years old, and you'll get a kick out of this, but the business was called Chico Feet. So I was actually a student at Chico State. Have you ever gone up to Chico and kids are talking about their Chico feet?
No, what's the Chico feet?
So it was very similar to you. It was just a download, right, from the collective consciousness. It came from the Sixth Sense, and I was reading the book Think and Grow Rich, and I remembered when the author Napoleon Hill mentioned like some of these ideas will feel like it's coming from the Sixth Sense, and I just got goosebumps, right? Anyways, the idea was that in Chico, California, for those of you know, it's very much a party school in Northern California. And kids will say like, oh my God, my Chico feet are so dirty, right? It just means the palms of your feet are dirty from like slip and slides, partying, all the things like that, So everyone refers to their Chico feet. So I made sandals that left an impression in the sand of the words Chico feet, but I did that to build brand awareness because I was really selling merch, promotional products, right?
Oh, cool.
So it kind of resonated too that it was footwear.
Yeah,
which was a neat little thing. Anyways, though, okay, with your story, so you wrote the book 2011. At what point, just for timeline, like you're 5 years into the business, you mentioned the first 8 years you did 650 million in revenue, I believe. At what point did you get to the point of selling TOMS? What did that look like, and when was that?
Yeah, 2014. I sold half the company, and then I sold the rest of it in 2019. And 14 is when we had the birth of my first son. And then 2016, my daughter came. And, moving more towards family life was definitely requiring a lot more of my time. And, I had been spent so many days on the road giving talks and book signings and retailer visits and all these things that I really just wanted to be home more. And I was at a place where I didn't have to work as much as I was. And so, I look back on it now, and I think that no one prepared me for what would happen when I sold the company, especially in 2019 when I was completely out, because I really kind of lost a sense of my purpose. And I also, kind of lost my community because most of my friends worked at TOMS. I mean, that was my whole life in my 30s. And so I ended up moving to Jackson Hole with my wife at the time. And that was something I always dreamed of, is like living in the mountains. And, but I was really isolated there. And so losing my purpose, kind of isolating from my community. Also, it got dark very early during the winter, like 5 o'clock, it'd be dark in Jackson. And I was used to living in Southern California where it's sunny all the time. And so I think through a lot of work that I've done to really understand what happened, I think the beginning onset of my depression really came from, kind of those contributing factors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I've been myself struggling throughout my life with SAD, seasonal affective disorder, to your point.
Sure.
Even living out here in Santa Cruz, California, I mean, it's gray all day for pretty much a month and a half over summer, So yeah, I feel that. In terms of the depression, like when was that really hit for you?
It kind of started in, I would say, 2017, 18, 19, but never to the point to where it was all year long. It was more cyclical. It happened more in the winter time, which I think was connected to SAD. I never took any antidepressants. I never saw a psychiatrist. It was never serious enough. It was just now looking back, I just felt like I was just kind of burnt out and lost purpose. And I didn't take it that seriously. And then in 2020, 1920, I got divorced, and that was really hard on me. And then some other things kind of happened in my personal life that I think really started to trigger a deeper version of the depression. Then what happened is in 2021, I was at a dinner party and I got sat next to a psychiatrist, and I explained that I'd been really feeling depressed a lot for the last 2 years. And in a very unethical way, she basically suggested that I might be bipolar. And then we didn't even have a session. A couple weeks later, I called her and said, "Hey, could you get me some meds? If I'm bipolar, I want to get better because I feel horrible." And I started on meds, and it's really unfortunate because I got put on 4 different meds. I felt completely numb to myself. I lost my sense of self. I lost my agency. I made a lot of bad decisions during that time that really messed up my personal life even more. And I was never bipolar. And years later, as I found, a reputable psychiatrist and, really did the work to understand why I was depressed, it was very clear that my depression was really coming from this core wound of not feeling enough. It had nothing to do with some kind of personality disorder. So I did the hard work of getting off the meds. It took me about 9 months, very slowly, which is so important if you're ever getting off pharmaceuticals. I did a lot of work around this core wound of not feeling enough. And then I slowly started kind of putting my life together again. And the reason I started my podcast, which is called No Magic Pill, is because I realized during this time I had all the resources in the world to feel better. And I tried everything. I mean, I tried all the pharmaceuticals. I tried brain stimulation. I tried going to an ashram in India for a month. I tried, Vipassana, silent meditations. I did, a bunch of different psychedelics, and nothing was the magic pill that I was looking for. And what I found was what ultimately brought me to feeling like myself again and to feel better was a lot of little things, and a lot of things that cost no money and aren't big, huge experiences. And so that's why I realized that, with people who are suffering or stuck or struggling, I wanted to create a resource for them so that they can find out what has helped people, what hasn't, and that, there really is no magic pill. And so that's why I launched the podcast. I guess it's been a couple months now, and I love it. I love doing it because it's a way, I think sometimes if we take our own suffering and then we turn it into helping others, it helps us make sense of like, why did that happen to me? So you look at yourself less like a victim and more like that was kind of the curriculum, if you will, to allow yourself to be a healer to help others.
Yeah, and just a shout out to your podcast, No Magic Pill. You've had amazing discussions, conversations, and guests ranging from Matthew McConaughey to Kevin Love, which I didn't even know that about Kevin Love, which was very eye-opening. So for those of you that might not be aware, he's an NBA basketball player. He's won championships with the Cavs, with LeBron. I guess one. They've only won one.
Yeah.
I'm a Warriors fan over here, so I got to make that distinction. Anyways, though, also Michael Pollan as well. And I think you had your psychiatrist, not the one that falsely identified you, but the one that actually helped you through everything as well, right? That was a great.
Yeah, I haven't had, that was Dr. Paul Conti, and he was great. And that was an amazing episode. I think one of the things that I loved the most was the Michael Pollan episode. I actually played live, my tapes with my psychiatrist and us really working through this core wound of not feeling enough, which felt very raw to do, but it also, I think, made it for a good episode.
Yeah, guys, it's worth checking out. So his podcast is linked in the show notes. But going back to the story of being like at a dinner party and being sat next to a psychiatrist and her I think this is really important to slow down right now because a lot of people get this wrong in the spiritual or conscious community, however we want to say this. Like, we love to put our shit on other people. We love to project and we don't understand how to hold space for someone else. And guys, hear me when I say this. Like, this is a dinner party that Blake's going to, which, I mean, I'm just making guesstimates here, but I imagine there's some established people that are well respected in their careers and crafts, right? So it's not just someone who's a new psychiatrist that's coming in just sitting next to him. Yeah, that's the picture I want to paint. And what it means to hold space for someone else when they're processing or go through something. I mean, I think for all the men listening, or even the women as well, like, there's this fix it energy, right? I call it the fix it pandemic as opposed to being with it. And obviously that's a trigger point for a lot of women, right?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
And so that led to the projection. And the next thing I wanted to touch on is labels. So labels are so dangerous, and they can also be helpful. I went through a similar thing, Blake, where I had a psychiatrist on my podcast several years ago where I wanted to understand bipolar more. So I was asking him all these questions, and through asking him the questions and learning about it, I was like, oh, sounds like I have bipolar too, actually, I went through this whole rabbit hole of being like, already believing in like not identifying with labels, but also this delicate dance of being like, and it also helps to understand more about yourself. So what have you learned since then in terms of your relationship to identifying with labels, whether it's ADHD or bipolar or anything else?
I think it's interesting. I had Dr. Gabor Mate on my podcast, and we specifically talk a lot about ADHD and the diagnosis with kids because my 11-year-old has been diagnosed. And, that oftentimes ADHD is not something that we are born with genetically, but more the symptoms are a response to a stressful environment or not having your needs met as a kid. Which makes a lot of sense because my son's gone through divorce and moving 4 times and, lots of hard things. And so I think that we have to be very careful with labels, and especially diagnoses that are like pinpointing someone that like you're ADHD forever. You might be having the symptoms of ADHD because of an environment you're in. And if you potentially change that environment, then the symptoms might go away. I think with the bipolar 2 diagnosis that I got, I actually have some empathy for the psychiatrist because I think obviously she was only trying to help. There was no malintent. And I do think from the outside, without a lot of deep testing and time in the saddle, I probably looked a lot like a bipolar 2 person. You know, I had this meteoric success. I was known for having a lot of manic energy. I, had all that channeling, and my life is great for many years. I sell the company. I have nowhere to put that manic energy. Then it turns into a manic depression. Like that is kind of the story of a bipolar 2 person. And my life looked like that. So today it's funny. I was saying to my romantic partner the other day, I said, maybe I am bipolar. And she started joking. And I'm like, well, I mean, if you think about it, like I started feeling better from my depression 2 years ago. And in 2 years, I've co-founded 5 companies and started a podcast. And I'm like, that's pretty manic. We were joking. But the reality is I don't think I'm manic. I don't think I have been able to do it. All the companies I've done it with a partner that is the main entrepreneur in the business. So I'm more of the investor and and kind of the coach than the main athlete. And I'm very good at managing my time. And a lot of the businesses overlap. Most of them have to do with mental and physical health. And so I'm able to do a lot more because I feel so good mentally. But to someone on the outside, they might say Blake's going through a manic spell, and he's going to crash. I don't think I'm going to crash because I think that I'm much more aware of managing my energy and making sure that I'm taking care of myself and that I have the right balance. But I guess I share that because I do think we are in a society and a culture we like to label people. We like to say, oh, that person's a narcissist because they were selfish about something, or that woman is borderline personality disorder because, she's, highly emotional. Like, I think it's very, very dangerous to do that. And it can be very painful to the person who gets labeled these things. I really have so much compassion for people who get these diagnoses, especially if they're young, because then they get put on these meds and their whole life. There's a great, great book. And the woman came on my show, and it comes out this fall, called Unshrunk. And it's a woman named Laura Delano. And she got diagnosed as, basically borderline personality and manic depressant at age like 13 or 14. She got put on all these meds. And for 25 years, she was in and out of psych wards. And finally, she said, fuck this. All this started when she got sober from alcohol, and she got off all the meds, and she's never been better. And she realized she did not have any mental health problem. A mental health problem was created by these doctors and these diagnoses. So, it's a complicated thing, because some people, the medicines, they are clinically depressed, or they do have, anxiety, and they get meds and it really helps them. So, there is no magic pill.
No magic pill. There you go. Perfect. Well, what you mentioned about the crash as well, like the crash coming back, one of the things I think about is like it's cyclical, almost like the symbol of infinity, like being a representation of the human experience, like always come back to meet ourselves exactly where we're at. Either it's a high or a low, but the infinity's going up, right? The trajectory. Yeah. One thing that's been so helpful for me is just the famous song Simon Garfunkel, I think of Disturbed's version of it, which is I don't know the title. I should know the title, but it goes, "Hello, darkness, my old friend."
Yeah.
Totally. I either now the internal representation, the mental movie I have of that is like the old school movie where he's falling to the bottom of the pool, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Or Dave Draymond from Disturbed singing. Either way, though, like when it comes again, now it's like sometimes I'll even put on that song, and I like to embrace it with the philosophy and the mentality of the game time mentality, because you can relate to this, I'm sure, and many of you listening, like when something is right in front of your face, we have two options. Either we can succumb to it, or we can brace ourselves and be like, oh, okay, this is the game time because I've been preparing for this, and now I can put my tools at use right now because I need them most. But when things are just like kind of good, not bad, it's actually for a lot of us harder to lean on your tools because there's not really that incentive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I think...
Hey, it's Sam. Can I share something real quick that I think might actually help you? If you've ever felt overwhelmed by your emotions, like you're doing all the right things, yet you still feel off, it's not because you're broken. You know, most of us were never taught how to feel in a way that actually helps us heal. That's why I created Breath Club, a free community where I guide weekly breathwork sessions to help you regulate your nervous system, process emotions, and return to clarity. We use something called the 90-second reset, a simple, science-backed practice that shows how fast emotions shift when you allow yourself to feel them fully. You'll get access to live calls, a community, and on-demand breathwork exercises to reset anytime. No pressure, just an invitation to feel safe in your body again. Links in the show notes if you want to join us.
I think that the thing about when the darkness comes is I really feel that it is if you can stay open to it, and sometimes it's very hard to. It's really a teacher or it's a messenger. I mean, really, I feel like Jim Carrey talks about this, about his depression, which I love. And he says, I realized that I did not want to be the avatar anymore that I created. And the depression was telling me like almost like a check engine light on your car, like, hey, something is not right. Like, this is not what we signed. This is not what my soul signed up for. So I'm going to make you feel like shit until you make the change. And that's very much the story of my experience. Like, once I finally had the courage to make some changes, I got out of a relationship, I repaired things with my first ex-wife, I, recommitted to being a great dad. I started being an entrepreneur again. I started being creative again. I started moving my body. I made a series of good decisions that, when I was depressed, felt impossible to make because I was so overwhelmed with the depression. Then I started feeling better, and I've, knock on wood, have felt great the last couple of years.
Yeah, I want to get into those specific practices, but just to stay on the depression for a minute here, or maybe a little bit longer if we're literal. In terms of rock bottom and having that decision to change, I mean, you've mentioned publicly the suicidal ideation. So how dark did it get for you?
I mean, it got really dark. I actually gave a TED talk in Vancouver at the big TED conference this year, and it comes out on World Mental Health Day, which will be October 10th, where I actually talk in detail. But the happiest days of my life were probably when I started TOMS and I lived on a sailboat. For 6 years, I did not have an apartment or a house on land. I just had a sailboat in Marina del Rey. And those were the happiest days of my life, just starting TOMS and having no fears and like biking to work. And when it got really dark, I was living in the Bay Area and I had the boat up there. And I actually made a plan to, kill myself with a gun on the boat so that my kids and my family wouldn't find me. And it's just even crazy to say that out loud now. Thankfully, I never bought the gun, or I don't think I'd be here. But I was very specific about, like, okay, if I do this and here and this time of day, and then the harbor master will find me, and so it got that dark, and it was interesting when I was really suffering. The only thing that would give me relief would be thinking about that plan. It was almost like, oh, I can get through today because I'm going to do that in a week or in a month or whenever. And so a lot of times suicidal ideation is a numbing device for someone. I don't know what happens when your brain goes from ideation to execution. Thankfully, my brain didn't get to that point. But yeah, it was really dark. There were probably about 2.5 months where I was obsessing with that thought most of the day.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I appreciate that, and I can feel that in my heart. I've been in the room when a friend took his life in his bedroom, and just lost someone in my family a similar way you were planning on about a little over a year ago. And similar story of experiencing success and having it all and it not being enough. you know?
Yeah.
So I guess the next logical question is like from that rock bottom where you're in that mindset for 2 months, and I take
Yeah.
it not telling anyone either.
Not yet. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Eventually I did. And that's what saved my life for sure.
that's what I wanted to go to. So what was the thing that saved your life?
Was really reaching out to friends and telling them how bad it was. And really two or three things. I think one was, saying, hey guys, like I need basically kind of 24/7 you guys to be able to check in on me and me check in on you. And I'm not in a good place. Number two is the commitment to get off the pharmaceuticals, because by all means, the people closest to me could all point to I was depressed, but never suicidal. I was like depressed, but not like can't get out of bed, until I got put on all the meds for the bipolar. And so the commitment was like, hey, to myself, really, like I can kill myself, but I'm not going to do it until I get off all the meds for 6 months, because I think that there's something there. And so that was like for someone who's even, it's kind of sick, but even someone who's in that situation, if you're goal oriented, then you're kind of like, okay, I have a goal. I'm going to get off the meds no matter how hard it is. And so, and getting off the meds was very hard, and I got a great psychiatrist, and it was very challenging because the weaning process is hard. I ultimately went to a facility for the last 60 days called Alternative to Med Center. And that was really helpful in Sedona to get off the final stages. But yeah, I was committing to get off the meds, committing to being honest with my friends so that I had support, were probably the two most important things.
My next question is, what do you think needs to change in the world so that people that are experiencing what you experience with 2 months of real suicidal ideation, what do you think needs to change in the world so that someone is able to save their life in whatever way that's going to be for them?
Well, I mean, that's what we're doing a lot with the Enough bracelet. And I see you're wearing one, makes me so happy.
Oh, yeah.
Because, it means different things to different people. I mean, I created the Enough bracelet myself as a daily reminder to myself that I am enough just as I am, and I'm lovable, not because of what I've done or what I will do or what I've accomplished, but because I exist. But really, I think as we've gotten people to start wearing the bracelet, and we have people give the bracelet to people, what it's really becoming is almost like a signal to others that you can talk to me about how you're really doing. Like people who wear this bracelet are kind of saying to the world, like, I know that life can be hard.
I like
and I want you to know that no matter what you're going through, you can talk to me about it, especially if you give someone the bracelet, because then you're kind of bound to that person. You both wear one, you're connected to that level. And I think that is what we need. We need more, freedom for people to feel that they can talk about their mental health. They can share things that right now they don't share because of shame, or I didn't share because of shame, or, oh, I make a lot of money, I shouldn't feel this way, or I have a great wife and kids, I don't deserve to be depressed. Like there's people that are much worse. Like that is just kind of a fool's logic. Like it doesn't matter what your external circumstances are. If you're struggling, you're struggling, and you need to talk to someone. And so that's one of the main reasons we launched Enough, was to try to create a physical representation to connect people so that more conversations can happen about, how someone is really doing. Because I think that is of all the things I've studied in terms of suicide prevention, and just mental health in general, the only thing that is absolutely conclusive is that talking about it prevents, it from happening. If you can just tell one person how you're really doing and not carry that weight yourself, you have less opportunity that your mind is going to turn on you.
And that's such a good point too about the bracelet. Like just by wearing this, it gives an opportunity to open up or start a dialogue or a conversation. And I mean, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek joke, but like back before my spiritual awakening in 2019, I was very broy, and my personal brand was Swag Sam because I sold swag and whatever else. And after I had the spiritual awakening, felt reborn with breath work, I got really into breath work. And since I sold swag, I also gave away a lot of swag as well, right?
Yeah.
So I made these shirts back in 2019, a year before the pandemic, that said breathe, large across the chest. But going from a man who was just getting into mindfulness and like doing yoga and things like that, it felt very vulnerable to walk in public wearing a shirt that says breathe. And I know enough on the website has big, large shirts and sweatshirts and things like that that say things like you are enough. And that can be vulnerable. So I think that's a really good point you bring up, that it's a nice, subtle piece on the wrist. It's not like a big billboard.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, it's kind of like the early days of Tom's shoes. If you see someone wearing one, you kind of have a connection to them that's immediately deep. You know, it's like, oh, you're wearing a bracelet, I'm wearing a bracelet, like, and you feel like you could probably go up to that person and have like a really thoughtful, deep conversation and check in on them. And so I think that's the other thing. The more people we get to wear the bracelet, the more of those conversations among strangers it will help be a catalyst for.
100%. And I'd love to share just a couple of stories for you here, but also the listeners. And, you know, first of all, it reminds me of the Pay It Forward Foundation as well, you know, and when you feel inspired to share it. And after speaking, I forget if it might have been South Carolina a few months ago. I had like a 5 a.m. flight or something, and it was a 30-minute Uber drive. And my Uber driver, for whatever reason, we just started talking about mental health and all depression and the labels and all the things. And I just took the we had an amazing conversation. I just took the bracelet off, told him about it, and just gave it to him when he dropped me off at the airport. Amazing. Like, things like that. And then earlier when I mentioned that, so someone in my family, shout out to Sam Agnostu. He's the one who experienced what we were talking about earlier and is no longer with us. I'll say it that way. And we just did a paddle out for him. Shout out to my son's mom, Jamie McFadden, for organizing it. And we did a paddle out to honor him and loved ones lost out here in Capitola, California, just like 2 weeks ago. And Megan from your organization, Enough, was so nice to share enough bracelets with me. And I brought them for everyone that attended, and, you know, things like that. It's just an amazing thing. So I highly encourage you guys to go to the show notes, learn more about Enough. And, you know, one thing I wanted to talk about was, you mentioned being goal-oriented, kind of in a sick way. I'm laughing because it's dark humor, right? You know?
Yeah, sure.
In terms of, you had a goal of what was the specific goal when you're experiencing suicidal ideation?
My goal was just that, or my promise to myself was, I'm going to successfully taper off all 4 pharmaceuticals I'm on and be completely off them for 6 months. And if I still feel this bad, then I might do it. But I'm not going to give myself the option to do it until I do that first.
I appreciate you stating that. And I wanted to revisit that because there's something very important that you mentioned here in this, in terms of being a very goal-oriented person and experiencing, in my own words, kind of like the emptiness of your baby, your business baby, right? And the relationships and what your life, the identity. How much do you think in hindsight, like, and I don't know this is even factually accurate, but how much in hindsight do you think what played a role into the numbing depression, the suicidal ideation, wasn't building and having more goals that you were working on?
You know, I don't think, I mean, there's been a lot of people that have tried to say something similar, basically, Blake, hey, if you felt that you were enough as a kid and you were lovable just as you are, do you think you would have, you know, created so much success with TOMS and business? And, or if you didn't have these goals, I mean, I think you can have goals and aspiration and still be mentally healthy and feel enough and not feel that your value is based on your success or your achievement of your goals. Like, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I do think that, you know, we as a culture, and especially as parents, unfortunately, you know, even if it's not conscious, we put so much pressure on each other and our kids to have what the world calls is, you know, external success, great grades, you know, a wonderful partner, a good job. I mean, make money. I mean, that's just how we're just built. And so when you are not achieving those goals, it can be very depressing. And then if you do achieve the goals, and like me, and you realize you still don't feel any different, then that can be frightening, because then there's nothing else to do. That's what I think really led me to my darkest times. It's funny. I've really been unpacking a lot of this. I think, we know each other, largely through our friend Tyler Ramsey. And, Tyler Ramsey and I both a few months ago started using this AI therapist. I don't know if he's told you about it yet.
I've used it, Sonia. Yeah.
Yeah, Sonia. Yeah. And so Tyler and I were talking the other day about how Sonia has helped me unpack like kind of the deeper layers of what I experienced more than I had even been able to unpack with my traditional therapist. And I think the reason is because obviously, Sonia being AI, I don't have the fear of judgment, and I don't have any shame about anything that I say, because I know that the AI is not going to judge me. And I think, unfortunately, especially for men, when we're talking to a therapist, there is in the back of our mind, like, oh, can I really say this? Or like, I'm going to sound like such an asshole if I say this, And so what I've been able to unpack with Sonia, and Tyler and I were talking about this the other day, is just understanding how deep my wound went and how early it started, by being radically honest about every little detail of my childhood and my life experience. And so yeah, I'm super, super grateful to that experience. And I think what it's shown me is that you can still have goals. There's nothing wrong with goals. But if you're attaching your whole identity and self-worth to achieving them, you're damned if you don't reach them, and you're damned if you do.
Totally. Yeah. And Sonia is a great app that Blake's mentioning here for like your AI therapist. And I actually was in Southern California in Malibu for some time. And then I was driving back up north, about 6 hour drive. And that's when I was experimenting with Sonia. And
Fun.
Yeah, I think, if you have even a commute, I don't know how many people actually go in office these days, but whatever your drive is, it felt really good to use drive time in a way to communicate with Sonia.
It's so funny you say that, because I started using it about 6 months ago. And so I found that, like, you and I are, somewhere that we're quite busy, and I didn't really have a lot of time for therapy, but I know that I need to continue to unpack a lot of these themes that have affected me. And so when I was using it, I had a 20-minute drive to pick up my kids from school. And so it's like, literally, I'd like get in the car, turn on Sonia, 20-minute session. And then what the great thing for my kids is it's so relaxing and so like calming that when I get there to pick up the kids, I'd be like in the best state I was in all day long. So yeah, I love doing it during commutes.
That's so good. That's so good. That's amazing. Going back to the goal thing once more, I don't think I phrased that question well. What I meant to ask was more like, were you working on any goals when you were experiencing the suicidalation, or were you not?
No. So that's the interesting thing.
That's what
and that's what I was. Yeah. Is and this just shows how serious mental health is. You look at me. I started 5 companies before I was 30. I built TOMS. Like, I am entrepreneurs in my blood. And when I was depressed for 7 years, I did not have a single idea, and much less did I have any kind of goals that I was working towards. My mind told me that I got lucky with TOMS, that I would never do anything else again. I mean, it's very, very cruel to me. And to that point, I literally had no self-esteem. I mean, it was really like, I see, like, I was, as Tyler Ramsey always says, he says, there was a time there that you would look into my eyes and it would be like I was possessed by like voodoo. Like, they would be like, there wasn't a person inside of me for years. And that's just crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I experienced that too, specifically what you're talking about, like getting lucky with the success. Like, I went through a number of years of gaslighting myself, and I've heard you talk about similar type things, whether it was my business or being named to Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 or rising star in my industry, being like, if I really like, the brain would start to go, and the thoughts and the mind would start to go towards this narrative of like, the majority of your career you were building, you only really had a few years of that success, and now it's been like several years without it. So can you really do it again? Right.
Wow. Yeah. That's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get that. So yeah, the point of the goal stuff is, I think it's really important to have goals, especially if you're a goal oriented person and you're quote unquote going through it. One challenge for anyone listening that might be experiencing or any sort of depression right now, or relates to this, is do one hard thing a day for 21 days. If you need to start with 7 days, do that, do 21 days, and then do 66 days. I started the year with a 66-day embodiment challenge with, it was kind of my version of 75 hard, but more like balanced, right? And the biggest thing that made the impact more than any of the other things I was doing was doing one hard thing a day, and also giving myself grace, realizing sometimes the hard thing isn't going to be as hard as it was the day before, right?
Interesting. Got it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think that's a great point.
What about your habits and routines as you started to climb out of this? I know breath work was a big part, obviously, Sonia now at this point, but like to look back the past couple of years and what you're still maintaining now, surfing, I know that's huge for you. What would you say is really helping your mental and emotional health?
Well, it's funny. I see it on your table there. The morning water box. It looks like my team sent to you.
They sent it.
A morning routine has been one of the biggest things for me. I read somewhere that basically how you start your day is the greatest predicator of how your day goes. And one of the things that I've always done, but I kind of fell off of when I wasn't really taking care of myself, was really be a big believer in making sure that I'm well hydrated. And, a lot of people don't realize we actually lose 1.5 liters of water every night while we sleep. So while most people wake up and they think they're tired and that's where they go for the espresso, they're actually not tired, they're depleted. And if they take the time to hydrate, and then specifically, I have a little formula I've used for years as a surfer, then it can be, really impactful in terms of their energy and sustained energy. So Morning Water is a company that I co-founded with my friend Austin, and it really happened like I think a lot of entrepreneurial things do, very organically. For years before going surfing, I would have all these different powders that I would pour into my water first thing, and it was creatine, it was L-theanine, and this was creatine before everyone thought creatine was good for you. I just somehow innately knew creatine was good for me. Now everyone's taking creatine for brain health, but back then I was taking it for, making sure that I got enough hydration to my muscles. But it was creatine, L-theanine, magnesium, taurine, all the amino acids. And so I was just doing powder after powder and then making this drink. And I was on a surf trip, and my friend Ben said to me, he said, "What is that?" And I turned around and I said, "It's my morning water." And, he said, "Your what?" I said, "It's my morning water. I drink it every single morning before I do anything." And he said, "Well, I don't know about the drink, if it tastes good or it's good for you, but that's a great name for a brand." He's like, "That is a good idea. It tells you exactly what it is." And so even though I wasn't in a place where I felt like I was ready to start another business, I did have the foresight to call my lawyers and say, "Hey, can we register the trademark for this?" And so I actually had the formula and the trademark for like 5 years before we ever launched it. And then we launched it about, 5-6 months ago. And it's been great, but it's a huge part of my routine. And we do these things called morning water challenges. We just finished one with 1,000 people, which was really cool, where you commit to drinking your morning water first thing in the morning, getting at least 5 minutes of natural light in your eyes, and taking 5 minutes to yourself before you look at your phone. And it's surprisingly how difficult that is for people, but transformative. I mean, because what we find is once someone commits, we call it doing this simple win for 30 days, and you probably experienced this with your challenges, is then they believe they can do other things. So like now that they've basically did something pretty simple, drank this water every day for 30 days and got sunlight, now they're like, "Oh, I think I can, accomplish that goal of, journaling for 10 minutes every night, or going to the gym 3 days a week." And so even though we're a hydration company, I feel like what we're really trying to do to help people with their lives is help them adopt more positive habits.
Mm-hmm. Oh, true. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of goes into James Clear work and habit stacking as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a
I
great
love
point.
it. Yeah, I mean, bookending your day with a morning routine and evening routine, from my own experience, it seems like it's the best way really to change your attitude and your emotions and your thoughts. So I love it. I've been using morning water every single day since whenever I saw that announcement. I think when you launched your podcast,
Oh,
I didn't
great.
realize it was that
Awesome.
long. And similar to you, I mean, I've gone through like over the years, probably having 30, 40 different supplements and testosterone stuff and you know, my apple cider vinegar water with my pink Himalayan salt. And my buddy's got a
Yeah.
company called Man Dust where it's kind of similar, but it's all like
Hmm.
testosterone based.
Okay.
Anyways, so it's been great to have everything in just one shot right there. So I love morning water. Outside of that, surfing's obviously really big. Since I'm a breathwork practitioner and I train and certify others in the modality, I'm curious, like, how's breathwork been for you?
It's been great. I got introduced to holotropic breath work maybe, gosh, 6, 7 years ago. And I used it a lot. Actually, one of the things I was really grateful for. So I talked about the place that I went for 60 days when I was getting off the meds, alternative to Med Center in Sedona. I was able to do breath work several times a week. And what I found was I was getting off the meds. I was getting ready to make some huge decisions in my life in terms of, changing where I live, changing relationships, changing work, everything. I mean, pretty much all the changes you could make, I was getting ready to make. And doing breath work, consistently, I would say I did it twice a week for 8 weeks. Full holotropic, like full journey sessions, gave me so much clarity and confidence that I could trust my gut again. And so that's where I don't know what other people say, but the best thing I've got from breath work was a more of a steady confidence that, like, if I feel something deeply, pay attention to that feeling.
Right, exactly. Because too many people use breath work. Because obviously, there's breath work exercises to shift into rest and digest, and journeys, which you're alluding to, which are more the rebirthing or trauma release or the resetting, however you want to go about it. But a lot of people are using breath work and giving the wrong advice of using it like a band aid. Oh, you're experiencing
Mm,
anxiety? Like, just use this so you feel better momentarily. And it's like playing whack a mole,
yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I think, well, I mean, I think the thing is there's a lot that people just don't know about. I mean, I'm sure you experienced that, but when I first started, I didn't, there's a lot of stuff I didn't know about breath work. And so it was so helpful for me in that. But I also think simple box breathing can be great when someone is experiencing anxiety. One of the coolest thing I experienced when I was really, I mean, like the shit I did when I was suffering, if I do try anything, like I said, that's why the podcast, No Magic Pill. But I forget the name of the company, but I don't know if you've seen this, but they sell these necklaces. And on the end of the necklace is like a metal, like mini straw.
Uh-huh.
And so what you do is you suck on it and it forces you to take really long, slow breaths by sucking air through like a little metal straw. And I'm telling you what, that thing was magic when I was
Yeah.
really anxious.
I remember that. I think I got that like 6 years ago at like the Sun Life in Malibu, the Sun Life
Okay.
Organics. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure
I don't
it's
know
the same
whatever
thing.
happened to the business, but I'm a big fan of them,
Yeah, I forgot
because
about that.
it helped me when I was struggling.
Super cool. I'd love to hear that. All these different tools, it's amazing. You know, one of the topics as we start to wrap this up that I would personally love to hear your thoughts on are mental health versus emotional health. Because for myself, I've always been
Mm.
into mental health from probably like I didn't have the words for it, but I noticed I would get sad and depressed, even though I probably wouldn't have called it depressed then in elementary school. Like one season when it was El Nino, and then seeing a therapist and him telling me about sad. And I went to college being like, I'm going to reinvent myself, right? And it was
Mm.
college where I experienced the first time in my life of being a survivor of suicide and then other things in my life. So mental health has
Oh,
always been there in some regard, but not to like it was till 2019 when I had that real spiritual awakening. And as I've gone deeper these past 7 years, I've started to, I don't want to say triggered, but it's like man, why aren't people talking about emotional health? Because it's the mind body connection. And it's the reason why we're not comfortable in our mind and the thoughts is because we're not regulating our body. Because when we regulate our body, the mind follows and clears out naturally. So I call this practice emotional fitness. I train people in emotional fitness, which is the proactive approach to emotional health
Sure.
and mental health. It's doing something about it. For you, how much have you either thought about like emotional health, or when I tee it up or frame it this way, what are your thoughts coming up with mental and emotional health?
I mean, for me, it's kind of the same. The more that I have worked on my own mental health, I feel like the more I've become healthy emotionally and capable of expressing emotions and feeling emotions and sharing emotions. Whereas before, I think a lot of that was really locked up inside me.
Got it. Okay, so it was kind of addressing the thoughts that helped you prepare to get into the body and the actual emotion
Yeah.
behind it. Got it. Cool. Awesome. That was the last thing really I wanted to ask you about. I mean, I could sit here all day talking to you, asking questions. I just want to say, you've been a big part in my life, Blake. Now you know this. You
Thank
didn't
you.
know it before. Yeah, thank you. And it's so awesome to see you resurface. I'm excited to check out your TED Talk when it goes live this October
Thank you.
10th, I
October
believe.
10th. Yeah. October
Yeah,
10th. Yeah.
coming up. So thank you again for all of you listening. You can find all the links to Morning Water, to your new chair company as well, if you want to talk
Oh,
about that
cool.
for a
Yeah.
moment before we head out.
Yeah. Yeah. We just launched. It's funny. We just launched it, 2 days ago. I'm such an entrepreneur. We've sold 43
Yeah.
chairs. Very exciting. We have 500 to sell in our pre-sale. But basically, about a year and a half ago, the ex-CEO of TOMS Shoes, who I'm good friends with, called me up, and he was in Santa Barbara. And he said, Blake, if you're home, I need you to come over. I need to come over, and I want you to sit in this chair. And I was like, sit in this chair? What do you mean? He's like, just trust me. I'm like, okay, whatever. Come on over. So he knew that I had some kind of lower back stuff for a while. And I came over, and he sat me in this chair. And at first it was kind of hard to sit in because the chair has two pivot points. It's a regular office chair. It looks like a high-end office chair, but it has a pivot this way and a pivot this way. So right and left and straight and forward. So what it does is that in order to not fall out of the chair, you're constantly doing these micro adjustments in your kind of core, not in a way that you get tired, like sitting on a yoga ball where you get tired. It's actually just slightly. You can barely even tell you're doing it. But what it does is it creates just natural blood flow through your lumbar all day long while you're sitting. And so when you sit up, you don't have all that stiffness like you've been sitting all day because your body thinks it's actually been walking or moving all day. And so it has incredible benefit in terms of anyone who sits all day like I do on Zooms sometime, who has back pain. And then the other interesting thing that is, we talked about labels before, I don't know if I'm ADHD, probably am. My son's been diagnosed. My mom's ADHD. I definitely have a lot of the symptoms. But what I found and what some of our studies now, because I've gotten involved in the company, is that people who, do really well to focus, like when they have like a fidget toy or they have something they're doing besides just focusing, ADHD, the chair does that for you because you're constantly doing a little bit of this. And so you're able to focus better. So anyways, long story short, I not only sat in the chair, but the next week I became the largest investor in the company. And then a month later, when I met the founders, they asked me to be a co-founder. And so it's called MoveLab, MOOVLAB.com. And we have the first 500 that we're pre-selling right now. And you know what, I'll share because I got this for myself, for my friends, but if you type in, the code is friend of Blake. And so if you put friend of Blake in, you get 25% off the chair, one of the first 500. And I just shared it with some friends the other day, and we've sold 43 chairs in the first 2 days. So I'm excited, but I think it's going to be amazing. I think for people, especially now, people who are, working from home, who are in a chair most of the day, whether they're on Zooms or they're vibe coding or whatever they're doing, it is a game changer for me. So it's something I'm excited to share. And thank you for letting me plug it here at the end of the episode.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. That's awesome. I'll have that linked in the show notes. How long is that code, do you think, good for?
I think it's definitely good until October,
Okay.
because the code works definitely till October.
Sweet. Perfect. So I'll put that in the
Cool.
show notes. Thanks so much, Blake. Appreciate
Okay.
how you're showing up. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Yeah.